If you'll please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I'll turn the time over to Dr. Libby for our superintendent highlights.
Oh, and that's why you wanted to put a pad underneath the microphone. When I said I wouldn't do that, and I turned right back around and did it. Now I'm just trying to find my highlights, and it is not here.
There's no pressure.
We're not staring.
No one's staring. Oh, here we go. So there, I apologize. I was gone for vacation on the last board meeting, and I believe they may have covered attendance as far as June 9. So June 9, pre-K 196, total enrollment 8479 was the enrollment. For highlights, Teacher of the Year, Tracy DeCore Burton was announced, identified as Facebook on our page as the Teacher of the Year for the school district. Congratulations to Tracy. We also have the Chamber Teacher of the Year, which is Kathy Perkins. And Kathy Perkins was also identified as the Chamber's Teacher of the School of the Year. Overland, some facilities updates. Overland is coming along. If no one's had a chance to kind of walk out back, all of their playground equipment is now in. It's all fenced in, and it looks pretty cool. Seeing the kids out there in some of their maker spaces has been fantastic. Let's see. West Ridge, we have some updates going on down there, and there's the beginning of the move for North Park, and North Park's going to be there for 2 years. We changed out some chalkboards to dry erase boards. That's coming up. So that's moving. And then while North Park's moving in, Desert View's moving back out to Desert View. And we are finishing up out there shortly so that that transition can be complete. We've got some new carpet going in at the junior high in some spaces. And we appreciate Mark and Ken taking a walk with Tina and Anthony and Jordan over at the junior high so that they could identify some spaces and places that needed a little bit of help and assistance in that area. Summer prairie dog watch and mitigation is in full swing. So we're trying to do our best to take care of some of that on some of our properties. And then let's see, what else do we have in here? We're waiting for the completion of the BLM purchase for the property to be submitted and to be filed. So those are the superintendent's highlights this evening.
Thanks, Dr. Libby. We'll move forward to the board reports. Probably don't have a whole lot with just having a meeting 2 weeks ago, but I did want to let the board and the public know that I have a WSBA chair meeting July 11th in Saratoga, and my family's appending a vacation onto that trip. So I will not be present for the meeting. Ms. Schumacher will be likely running our July meeting, and I will try to call in and attend from there. So just for your awareness. Are there any other board reports? Mr. Sorensen, go ahead.
Just a quick one on transportation is they had 12 openings at the end of the school year. They're down to just 2 openings, so they're doing a really good job. And I was talking to Bo today. He's really excited about his staff and what they're doing down there.
Other board reports.
So I just wanted to, that is really loud, respond a bit to some of the, I think is a written comment that we received in regards to the ninth grade center. I know that there is going to be further information provided as far as that goes too. So I just kind of wanted to give my thoughts on it more than anything. As anyone who has been following these board meetings know, I'm a proponent of the school district changing what they have proposed as far as the entering freshmen. And really, I just wanted to state that this idea to me came well before what we've talked about this year and what has been proposed. It's actually something that I tried to discuss with previous boards about removing the ninth graders from the general population based off of many different things. But a big part of it was my husband and I actually had a guardianship of my niece who was in 8th grade. Then it was 9th grade and 10th grade were the years that we had her. And it was a struggle. It was a really hard thing for us to take in a child who was an at-risk youth. She struggled significantly she was actually in the juvenile system when things happened. With that, she struggled with mental health. She had a hard home life. And so that was a big part of why we got involved too. And to see her transition from junior high to 9th grade and then into 10th grade, it was eye-opening. And so that's really when I started getting interested in a lot of it. And that's really where the research part of that came from for me. And there's plenty of research out there that shows that taking that 9th grade class out of the general population benefits the overall students, because this is where we find our dropouts. Majority of people who are failing their 9th grade year, they aren't going to finish high school. And so this is something academically that our board has put an emphasis on wanting to fix. And I think that this is a step in the right direction with it. Since being on the board, I've talked to several people about it as well. No one had an interest in this whatsoever until Dr. Libby came in. And so I was really appreciative of the fact that he was willing to listen. But with that being said, I wasn't part of the decision making. So when this process began and when people were talking about it, it was actually brought up in a public meeting in February to the board. A public meeting. Everyone was entitled to be there. No one really was. And it was just one of those things. But it was one of those things where the board really was supportive of it. And I don't want to speak for anyone else by any means, but it's definitely one of those things where I was very excited to hear about it. A big thing, again, was just that transition. We have a lot of failures. And by failures, I mean a lot of classes that are failed by our 9th grade entering class. Statistically, we see that. We've seen that for years now. And so I really think this is a big step in the right direction for it. And I really am excited to learn more and see where this goes, because ultimately I do think it's a great thing for our students. It's my understanding that the freshman class is going to be taken out of the high school for their core classes. It's going to be split into 2. The core classes will be at the satellite school as far as that goes. And ultimately, half the class is going to begin there, half the class is going to end. There's one transition for that. It's not interrupting instruction time or anything like that. I mean, it's mandated by state, our instruction time is, so it can't be interrupted. It's built in appropriately with our actual school day to allow that. And it's one transition for those either going to the high school or coming from the high school to the satellite school. And I really love that, because one of the things that's been brought up a couple different times by those on the board is the fact that right now, with the way that the campus is held, we have students who are going back and forth between satellite, high school, main campus in the middle of the day in their own vehicles, with friends, on the interstate, through town. Ultimately, it's going to eliminate that, because we're going to have our 9th graders bused. It's not going to be their choice to just go to and from as they please. And the way that it's set up is there's only that one transition. So I think that that is something that I've heard spoke about, and something that I think that is great as well. The other part with that is I do believe that although it's different, change is scary, something that I think everyone says. I do think that it's going to be a good positive thing. I think that our freshmen, it's going to be different for them. It's not what they're used to. But I think with supportive parents, I think with the supportive community, I think that with having staff that's closest to them, friends and peers, the resilience is really going to shine through. I really, truly believe that. The biggest thing about it, and one of the things that I 100% agree, is that a lot of times our freshmen, in this group between 14 and 18-year-olds, they get lost. They get lost with new big school. They get lost with mental health. They get lost with everything that kind of they deal with such a big change in their lives. And the nice part about this is we're going to have all of our freshmen located centrally in one location. They're not going to be overshadowed by seniors and juniors and sophomores. We're going to be able to keep a close eye on them, be able to work with them directly, be able to see them daily in one location without all the chaos of the big new environment. And I think that that's absolutely wonderful and something that our kids will 100% benefit from. And honestly, from experience with my niece, didn't happen before. I mean, it was really easy to lose those who were either at risk or not following the rules, or, you know, the big thing is open campus, but it's closed to freshmen. That's going to be enforced now because all lunch is happening at the satellite school. They're not going to be able to leave. Those types of things are not going to be something where they're just walking out with a group of older kids and no one says anything. And so I'm really excited to see where that goes and ultimately what we can do as far as it is. A big part of it is academics. We have an emphasis on wanting to get academic scores up, graduation rates up. Since I've been on the board, that's been a main focus for us. And I think that this is a great starting point because we're going to not lose our individual kids. We're going to be able to work hand in hand in that big transition year. And my hope is that we're going to be able to see that move forward from there. Again, this is relying on research, personal experience of others, all the things. We don't know what's going to happen next year. I mean, and that is scary, although I also think it's an amazing opportunity. I think that our school district could very well benefit from that. And so I'm super excited to see where that goes because I do think that although it's different, our freshmen are going to learn to grow individually. They're going to learn to grow together, and they're going to learn to hopefully be more academically successful based off the structure and the whole position behind it all. And so I'm really looking forward to that. I think that we're going to be able to build a lot more confidence and security in our freshman class by having something like this set up. And that's based off of course, my personal opinion, but also, like I said, the research that I've seen and talking to those who have seen this type of structure in other bigger school districts, in other states, things like that, where ultimately it has been proven to be successful. And so I'm super excited to see where that goes. And I think it's going to be a great impact. And I'm really hopeful that we can still see some positivity with it all and ultimately be able to see how our community can be positive with it and then grow from there.
Thanks, Ms. Schumacher. I might add just a couple of things for clarity's sake. One of the issues with the academies at the satellite school right now is literal physical capacity of the satellite high school building. And so one of our goals in this, moving the academies back to the high school, is purely the opportunity to have access to the academies by all students and not limit who can be a part of those. So hopefully we see some improvements in the academies as well. And then to Ms. Schumacher's point, one of the biggest concerns that we heard and that data reflects going into this year was that 8th to 9th grade transition. And I'll speak for myself, but I know it was discussions that we've had as a board, is we would be failing our students if we didn't try to make a change that benefited them academically. And so our goal in doing this is to really provide some core instruction with a core group of individuals. One thing that we anticipate seeing as a benefit here is that if a student's having a hard day, they're with a couple teachers who can kind of make sure they support that student and help get them through that day, rather than jumping back and forth with maybe 8 different teachers or something, or multiple different teachers throughout the day. So hopefully they have some more stability that way. I also think from the perspective of mental health, that we're hoping, although there's always unintended consequences and we need to see what that is and learn from it and grow, the goal is that this should help the mental welfare of our students, because they're going to have some separation from the upperclassmen. They're going to have some space to make this transition. Again, back to some of the comments we've seen, the capacity is an issue. If we could have all the ninth graders there all together, that'd be one thing, but we can't right now until we get further down the line with the new high school being built. Maybe we'll do a ninth grade wing or something like that. That's still in discussions. But for right now, we have to swap the core groups of individuals that one time to accommodate all those students. So again, pros and cons of change, where there's bound to be unanticipated consequences that we need to work through. But there are some of those other benefits as well that we're looking forward to. With that in mind, are there any other board reports? Okay, let's move forward. Murr, if you'll do the roll call, please.
Mrs. Wood? Here. Mrs. Schumacher? Here. Mr. Franks? Here. Mr. Gardner? Mr. Suppi? Here. Mr. Sorensen? Here. Chair Wright?
Here. Okay, and we'll move forward. If I can please have a motion to approve the agenda as presented, including the addendums.
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Schumacher. A second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Sorensen. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Excellent. Move forward to item number 3 on the agenda, suspending the board meeting and opening the public hearing. If there's a motion to do so. Thank you. It's been moved by Dr. Franks. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Wood. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. With that, we'll move on to our budget amendment presentation, and I believe Fiona will be providing that.
Hi, everybody. I won't touch the mic this time, Zach. Don't worry. Just my computer will touch it. Okay, so I have the budget resolution to present to you guys today. What I'm presenting is the fiscal year 25 budget resolution. So it's for the fiscal year that ends in 7 days. So it's for July 1st, 2024 through June 30th, 2025. So when we create the original budget, we obviously work to present you with the most accurate figures. Unfortunately, that's not always how things are going to pan out as we go through the year. So we use historical cost, projection, judgment, or a combination of all those items to kind of estimate these things. And then at the end of every year, we have to come up with a list of things that need to be amended. So that's what you're seeing now. And on the screen, you can see in the first column, we have the approved budget. So that's what was approved by the board not in 2025, but actually in 2024 before we started this fiscal year. And then you can see there's a debit column and a credit. So depending on the type of fund, depending on the type of account, the debit is going to increase and the credit is going to decrease. That would be the case for expenditures. For revenues, it's the opposite. So that makes this a little bit more understandable. Then we have our final as amended numbers. So you can see that all of these relate. So our approved budget and then our debits and our credits are our adjustments. And then that gets us to our as amended final budget. So as you're going through here and interpreting or trying to understand, the information that we're presenting you with, for starters, the general fund is schools, services, departments, salaries, benefits, health insurance, fixed costs. The general fund has a huge amount of the items that we probably are most concerned about, or that the general population is most concerned about. So those are going to be in this top section for the general fund. Then if you continue down, we get to special revenue, All of the special revenues, those are primarily related to grants. So we have a lot of adjustments related to each of those individually. They're listed by grant in here. And continuing, we have our enterprise fund, which is food service. Luckily, there weren't too many adjustments there, but we still included it here just for your reference. And then down through Head Start, and that is the end of this document. That's the easiest way to approach interpreting this from a top-down kind of view. But does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Berry?
So I know there's a last minute fire drill when you get the actual numbers from the state. When does that roughly happen? When does the budget have to be approved and submitted?
Well, so right now we're just presenting you guys with the budget resolution, which is going to amend fiscal year 25. For fiscal year 26, we're going to get final approval for you on the prelim budget that we already presented, but we're going to modify and get final approval for the following fiscal year at the July board meeting.
Any other questions? Thanks, Fiona.
Thank you.
So if you board members look, there are some written public comments. Those were actually just submitted under the wrong heading. They belong as the written public comments for our next section. So there are no written public comments in pertinence to the public hearing. With that, we'll move on to agenda item 6. If I can please have a motion to close the public hearing and reconvene the board meeting. Thank you, Dr. Franks. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Wood. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. We'll reconvene our regular board meeting with item number 7, our public comment period. I appreciate you guys all attending today's board meeting and for your ongoing engagement with the district. As we move into our public comment portion, we kindly ask that each speaker limit their comments to one opportunity. If you've already submitted written comments, we kindly request that you refrain from addressing the board again on the same topic. All written comments will be posted in the written public comment section of the agenda for review by all attendees, including trustees. If you have a concern regarding a district employee, please know that in order to protect privacy and ensure due process, such matters will be addressed in a closed session. We encourage you to utilize the district's official complaint process, which can be found on the district website along with the necessary forms. If you are unable to finish your comments within the allotted 3 minutes, we invite you to submit the remainder in writing to the superintendent or board chair. These submissions will be shared with all board members after the meeting and will receive a response in the same manner as public comments. So with that, if there are any in-person public comments.
Dr. Libby, Chairman Wright, members of the school board, members in the audience. Some of you may recognize me as being a previous teacher at Sweetwater 1. I am coming to you as a parent. My name is Dina Fulmer. I have a child moving into 9th grade this year. I want to start with a visual. I want you to paint a picture of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall in Washington, D.C. It consists of two 246-foot, 9-inch long sections for a total of 493 feet, 6 inches long. That's 164 yards or more than 1.5 football fields for anybody who needs a visual to relate it to something that we can see. At its highest point, it is 10 feet, 1.5 inches tall. It contains the names of 58,318 servicemen and women who were lost between the beginning of the war in 1959 and the ending of the war in 1975. That's 16 years it took to add up to 58,318 names. Now, I'm getting the next statistics from the Jason Foundation stats. Or Jason Foundation. Jason Foundation is a foundation set up for students or people fighting mental health issues with suicide and suicide awareness. Each day in our nation, over 3,703 children ages grades 9 through 12 commits or attempt to commit suicide. That does not include the 7th and 8th grade kiddos or younger who attempt suicide. At this rate of 3,700 student or children per day, it only takes 16 days to replace every single name on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall. 16 days to replace every name. That doesn't include every student who has attempted to commit suicide. I have one who attempted to commit suicide. He was in the 5th grade. His name wouldn't be on the wall. I walked in one evening to find him with a rope wrapped several times around his neck in the 5th grade. I immediately started outside help for him. I've worked for the last 3 years getting him the help he needs. In December of this year, I got a frantic phone call from the school district. Mr. Urban called me and said, I need you to come to the school district. I need you to come to the junior high office.
Ms. Holner, I truly don't like to interrupt you. Your message is important to us. Will you please submit the rest of it to us in writing? We will take it into consideration, truly.
Mental health matters.
I agree with you completely.
He's beginning to go. Take care of our kids. Because right now you haven't, and I'm not letting mine set foot in this high school.
Are there other in-person public comments?
Good evening. For those who were here last time, my name is Bill Formanek, and I did speak regarding the open carry policy that the board is considering. I have sent a rather lengthy email to each of the board members. I hope they've all had a chance to look at it. I know some of them have because they courteously responded with their comments. I won't read that since they already have that to be cognizant of the time. But I would like to ask the board a couple of questions. Hopefully there's answers. If not, those may be matters that are still being discussed. I'm going to ask, has the district legal counsel thoroughly read and analyzed the new statute? Almost sounds like a no-brainer question, but can anybody speak to that?
If you'd like to ask us your questions, we'll make sure we respond to them. You go ahead and provide your questions. I'm taking notes of them and we'll.
Okay. And does the board have a difference in the definition between the terms concealed weapon and concealed firearm? Because the way the statute was written and the way our proposed policy is written, those terms are used interchangeably. And maybe that's not the best way to with the nomenclature. What about non-firearm weapons? Somebody walks in with a knife, a machete, a bomb. Those are weapons, but the policy doesn't distinguish those from firearms. So I'm asking the board to consider whether some appropriate terminology belongs in there. Are the schools planning to ask concealed carriers to show the permits upon entry? Is that something within our purview? Again, reading the statute, I don't believe it says we can or cannot. How do we know who's walking in with a concealed weapon being permitted properly? So I don't think that's really out of line to ask to show that and perhaps have a log at the office of each of the schools. I did speak last time, I'll just mention it briefly, that I went through the junior high. I am a teacher there. We do have some cleaning chemicals, which under certain chemistry websites indicate that those chemicals are considered either volatile or highly volatile. The statute and our policy proposed says, and I'm going to quote here, Section 1, subsection D, paragraph 6, and this is from the statute.
Mr. Formanek, I'm going to interrupt you because I'm trying to be consistent with everybody.
I'm sorry.
You're
I
okay.
hit 3 minutes.
You're okay. We do have answers to your questions and we will address those during the response to public comments from what you've submitted to us. So we will address those in just a few
Okay.
minutes.
Thank you very much for your time. I've spoken my piece. I want our kids, our staff to be safe. I know we need to comply with the law, but I think there's some wiggle room the way the statute is worded, and I hope we can take advantage of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Libby and board members, I'm Laura McKee, and I also wanted to speak about the gun-free zones. One of the things I just wanted to say first off is that I'm sure that you're aware, but that there was a gunman in a church, and because a good guy was carrying in Wayne, they were able to stop any casualties at all. And I have a lot of faith in our teachers. I've had really good experiences with our teachers. Their job is such a hard job, and they are dedicated. And I believe that a teacher who's going to take the responsibility of carrying a permit is going to, if they feel comfortable doing that with a concealed carry, they're going to want to do all they can to be educated on it. However, in the policy that you guys are writing, you want them to have not only the concealed carry, which is 8 hours, and you can read on there, and I sent you guys an email on it as well that talks about, you know, all the things that they teach in that, but you also want them to have 16 hours of live training. There's nowhere here you can get 16 hours of live training, okay? There's also, you want them to have 8 hours of scenario training. There's none of that either. I mean, I know that somebody had called the sheriff's office because I called the undersheriff and he said he did receive a call in April, but nothing since. So why would we be getting a policy that's impossible for teachers to carry by adding all these extra items on it? The Wyoming state, you know, the legislature, they do regulate it. And so I just feel like we're making things harder. And I just know that our teachers are going to do the right thing. I mean, the ones that I've talked to either feel comfortable or not comfortable, and they would want they would want training. But, you know, if you guys haven't, you should read the book, Why Meadow Died. The Parkland school shooting was the most avoidable mass murder in American history, and the policies that made it inevitable to spread to your schools. And they were focused on the guns that were used in that shooting instead of being focused on what happened, you know. And we're Wyoming. A lot of people here concealed carry. I can go into Walmart at any time. There's a lot of people in there concealed carrying. It does not faze me at all because I know that people, I mean, that's why we don't have it. It will deter people. The time for people to show up, we'll have people on scene immediately. There won't be any response time for these people to be there. And I love our teachers, and I feel like they would protect our students at all costs, even if it meant that they made the greatest sacrifice of all, of giving their own life to protect them. And I think we should enable them, encourage them, and help them to do this.
Thank you, Ms. McKee. Further public comments? Further public comments? Oh, well, thank you. Sorry.
I'd like to address the board and everybody else in the room. This is kind of on the same subject. I believe that everyone should be safe in the school. And let you know that the law does make mistakes when it is least sure of itself. And a responsible person should be armed at all hours during the school hours in each school. Somebody experienced and real efficient in firearms. And I know you probably have heard this before, but the only way to stop a bad person with a gun is a good person with a gun. And I hope you consider what I'm saying.
Thank you. Can we
That's-
grab your name?
What is that?
Your name, please?
Yes, Cleve Holloway.
Thank you, Cleve.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Further public comment? Further public comment? One last time, is there any further public comment? Okay, not looking like it. I will point the board to the written public comments. There have been quite a few there. If you have not had the chance to review them, please do. And we will go ahead and move forward to our response to previous month's public comment. And for starters, we'll turn it over to Dr. Libby.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Hold on tight. We had a lot of public response and comment, so I'm going to see if I can get through those. If I, by chance, miss someone through here, please reach out and let me know. And what we continue to try to do is, as we do these public comments, is we post them onto our Facebook page, or not Facebook, onto our webpage under the board docs communications portion. Also want to remind folks that if by chance you have a question or a concern and you want to ask ahead of time, feel free to reach out to us, because many of these questions can be answered either by myself, human resources, curriculum and instruction, special education. And if you reach out to us ahead of time, we can get you your response right away. And I always ask those folks that reach out ahead of time, do you want me to make that part of the next visitor's comment section? Because it may be something that is an individual question. It may also be something that is an interest to the rest of the community. So if you don't want to wait a month, or in this one, 2 weeks, please feel free to reach out ahead of time. We'll try to provide you a response as quickly as possible. And then if it is something that we both agree, hey, this is probably something that more people want to know about, I'm more than happy to throw it into the response to the visitor's comment, and we'll make sure that we get it on the board page. So with that, hold on tight. So we'll see if we can get through this in a timely fashion. There were questions and concerns from Ms. Williams last week around ESA, which is the homeschool policy and for payment. And I think there was a little bit of a confusion. She did reach out and talk to some folks here at the district office that when we revoked the No Child Left Behind laws, that in the process, it was going to do something with the homeschool and the requirements of the district to also provide homeschool opportunities through WASHA. So the Wyoming High School Association of Athletics has mandatory requirements that are statute, that homeschool kids have absolutely every right to take part in any of those sporting events or those academics that are supported through WASHA. Nothing's changing with that. We have every expectation to continue to do that. There is a portion in there from the letter from Superintendent Degenfelter. It was, I think, the June 16th letter. I apologize. I'm trying to get my new glasses to work right. A family that has chosen to participate in the ESSA program cannot also enroll in the public school district. Indeed, the family that can negotiate with the school district to take some courses. We're still in the process of trying to figure out how many of our students who are actually homeschooled may be coming back to the school district to take classes that may not be certified through WASHA. I have no idea. how they're doing that. I do know that one of her concerns is whether or not there were junior high athletics that are supported. Junior high athletics are not supported by WASHA and across the state. However, we have a conversation coming up with the junior high administrators, the high school administrators, to have a conversation as to what end, like why. I just throw my own personal opinion out there because I don't speak for the rest of the folks that are going to get together. But if you have junior high kids that would be involved in our athletics and our activities, why would we want them not to continue doing that if they're in 2 more years, they're going to be at the high school participating in those activities anyway? So in my mind's eye, that's not a conversation. If they're already part of those activities and those athletics that are already sponsored at the high school level, by all means, continue. Again, it's just my 2 cents. There's a committee that will get together and they'll bring forward a recommendation for us to move forward back to the board as to how we do this. But it was a good conversation with Ms. Williams. I believe we got all of her questions answered as they move forward. There is an opportunity, and we're going to discuss this through because I do believe there may be some high school students that enroll in some of our academics, and there's opportunities for that to still occur. And the state opened up that opportunity for them to do that either as a vendor or as us setting some sort of payment or fee for an individual student to take an individual class. So there are ways to do it. We're still working out the kinks to get it done. I think when it was mentioned that we have 192 students in some form or fashion that may take part in a homeschooling event. If all 192 of those students were high school kids, the equivalency of that funding that's now being provided is $1.5 million. So we are about a $100 million show. It's 1.5%. May not be a drastic deal, but $1.5 million every year is about the equivalency of about 15 teachers. So it does matter, but there's opportunities for us to make this work for everybody involved. So I appreciate her reaching out. Mr. Formanek, there you go, sir. I think I can answer your questions here because I have your statement. If I miss any, please reach out to me afterwards and I'll continue to try to go and get those answers to you, but we'll make sure that we get these up. Appreciate you catching the typos. We appreciate that. You asked about where are other tasers, knives, machetes, all of those. Those are addressed in other disciplinary policies that are already posted on the school board webpage. So JFCJ and JFCJR, dangerous weapons in schools. Those are already covered previously in a different policy. This policy that we're talking about, CKA, is specific for handguns. Weapons, dangerous weapons is already taken care of in another board policy that has a long-standing history within the state of Wyoming and within the school districts.
Handguns only, not.
I can't engage with you in a conversation at this time. I can just answer your questions. If I can reach back out to that because long guns are represented, and I'll come to that later. So question 1 and 2 were about typos. Appreciate you throwing those in there. You had a question about statutes that prohibits or denies access to valid entry into a school for concealed carry. Is there some way that we can log? The statute doesn't allow us to ask to see permits for folks that are coming into the school district. It's part of the statute. We can't ask. For people with weapons in school property, is there a reason guns locked in vehicles or in the parking lot? Again, having weapons on school grounds is covered through those same JFCJ policies and dangerous weapons policies. And there's already statute in place that identifies long guns are never permitted on school grounds, and that's in a different statute at the state level. One of the big fines. Yep, I want to make sure I got to it. So there's one around the chemicals. These are absolutely great questions. And I had to write this one out because originally they were actually having conversations around, well, our dry erase markers and our dry erase board remover has isopropyl alcohol in it, which is flammable. So there was actually a conversation at the state level that those levels, those are not considered part of this because people were looking for that one piece as though, okay, so what's considered an out, what's considered flammable? Those types of things, those weren't involved in this. This question has been brought up multiple times and those responses have, we haven't received responses back. So the tendency around like the handy wipes or the dry erase markers, You sent a picture of acetone, which is commercial acetone. Science guy too, fingernail polish remover. If you know what you're doing with fingernail polish remover in this commercial acetone, absolutely is considered a volatile material. We haven't gotten a response to that. That is still one of those definitions that the state statute, when we've pushed back on making sure we've got clear definitions, they're still working on that. We have had conversations, well, if those volatile materials are in certain places, those facilities should then be prohibited. So I've had questions around chemistry labs, the welding shop, the art room, our kitchens, right? We have chemicals in some of those spaces that can be considered volatile in the container and in the fashion in which they're housed. However, I've still not gotten an answer back as to how do we treat those spaces. If you ask some folks and you say facility, some folks say, well, that's just the classroom itself, where others look at facility and say, it's the entirety of the school. No answer to that. So we're still waiting for clarification from the folks that wrote the policy at the state level to actually provide some clarification for some of these issues that you absolutely have hit on the head. So I want to appreciate you for sending those out. So
One other,
Thank you and the administration for having a discussion to explore. Thank you.
Mr. Formanek, you had one other question I'd like to address, and that is that the district legal counsel and the WSBA council has read and approved of the policy the way it's presented today. So that they have reviewed that.
that was my next one. Yeah, it's been looked at by local council. It was looked at WSBA. Our local council actually reviewed that policy with several other of the larger school districts in the state to move forward. We have the gun-free zones. I think it's Representative McCann came and provided a statement, and I appreciate him coming. There was a question around, oh, where'd my notes go? I think there was a question around the ability for staff to receive some specific certification and some training that was provided. And I think our policy was misread, that it's not the policy that we want our teachers to be certified in that. It's that the trainer should be certified in those areas of, I think it was POST was one of them. And there was another acronym that was in there as well that we received from our chief of police. There was a question in here about high school enhancement costs. We'll be meeting this summer. Nope, where's the rest of his? He had a question around taking advantage of funding that came through Superintendent Degenfelter's response for providing funding for any initiatives or any training that went into place to get this policy enacted. I think the issue was that they need to look at the letter a little bit more closely because the reimbursement was only for fiscal year 25, which is over here in about 7 days. So for us to get any type of expenses related to this implementation past that, Superintendent Degenfelter only qualified funding for the remainder of this fiscal year. So I think I got those. There was a budgeting question that came up around high school enhancements. Oh, this related to the $40 million for the overall enhancements for like the pool. And I think, again, Chair Wright, you addressed this. That was for a complex. It was for a massive complex that was built that also had extra gymnasium space, indoor spaces, some of those activities that were involved. This summer, since the architect's been identified, we're going to be coming back together and holding some summer meetings with folks to really start nailing down what do those enhancements need to look like for the high school as we move forward. And then we're going to start working with the architecture to actually put some numbers on some things. I do have some parents that go to all the indoor track meets that I asked them to send some photos to me so that I could start gathering that information. So when folks start talking about these places and these spaces and they're adding commas onto numbers, that we can say, hey, here's some photos from what people are talking about. Let's start identifying what matters most to us and getting some picture boards up so that we can start really hammering out what this is going to look like coming forward, because all of that enhancement money has to go through levy. We have to go after that through levy funds and operating bonds. So, or operating bonds to build, operating levies to operate. So that's going to be happening this summer. We had a question about curriculum concerns around meeting the requirements for state statute. And I think this was Ms. McKee's, and I apologize, McKee, I'm blanking out. It was at 148 or 147? Yep, the Reading Horizons curriculum and whether or not it was going to meet state statute and federal statute around DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as you go through and you read some of those reports around Reading Horizons, I do believe that Ms. Bolton sent some communication around the curriculum itself. I want to comment that the ELL and dyslexia is not a protected class. Those are characteristics of disabilities. And in the ed reports attached to the Reading Horizons review, that's specifically identified in there as opportunities for those students to read those resources and supports. The Texas MRAs, which I'm actually familiar with from 2024, Reading Horizons is actually 100% approved by the state in its materials and its review for K-3. House Bill 147, prohibition of institutional discrimination, relates to staff training, and it's not related to the purchase of curriculum or the implementation of curriculum. That's the same as the executive order that was asked to be looked at, 14151 and 14173, those executive orders from President Trump, ending radical, wasteful governmental DEI programs and preferences, is related to the training of preferential hiring practices. And if folks were watching national news, that's a lawsuit with Harvard that was going on. And I think that got itself settled. And then the other one was related to the admissions based on race, gender, and ethnicity, where folks were basically taking lower standards for individuals instead of taking the folks that actually met the standards straight across the board. So the Department of Education's 2/14/2025 Dear Colleagues letter was specifically related to the enrollment of students into post-secondary programming based around race, gender, and ethnicity, and wasn't around the use or the implementation of curriculum. So I just wanted to make sure that we pointed those out. But the question specifically around 147, the prohibition of that discrimination in the use of how the curriculum is supposed to be used, we identify in that material that there are, our students come from a lot of different backgrounds, and there are pictures and there is relative visual aids that go along with quality reading instruction, that when kids are using those picture diagrams and the other materials, that they recognize pictures that actually look like them as well. So it's a multitude of identifications of a cross-cultural curriculum. Board policy, we had a question that came up around visitors and community entering buildings, and that's board policy EB8, which is online. We also have a board policy GBCC, which is staff bullying, retaliation, and then violence and bullying. And then you have another board policy that's ACA and GBA that are also around Title IX. And one of the questions that arose was access for parents to get into buildings to visit classrooms. I think this came up in twofold, so I'm going to be really generic about this because it came up in the same instance that we were talking about a Title IX issue. And you do have a right to enter the building. GE8 provides you the opportunity, and it's very short and very generic. Basically says you need to communicate with the building administrator and the teacher at a time so they can set up a time for you to be there. And by the way, while you're there, it's not to have like an open conversation. It's not a conference time with the teacher. You're just there to kind of witness how the class is running and how the building's operating or how that classroom's operating. Title IX is completely different. And if you have an opportunity where Title IX is a federal law, but it also has a very, very strict policy as to how it needs to be enforced. So when you're in a situation where there's a potential of a Title IX issue that's going on, but there's also a request for a visitation to the classroom. Human resources and those that are looking at both these policies don't want to set anybody up for failure. So you don't want to put somebody who has a Title IX issue of harassment or intimidation or bullying to turn around and then also have a parent that may be in the classroom in the same situation where there's a Title IX investigation going. We don't want to set anybody up for failure. Don't want to put anybody in an awkward spot. Example I could use is, let's just say there's a situation where we're in an elementary classroom and Miss Murray's in the classroom and she's being harassed by little Joey Libby. And he doesn't know that that's what's occurring. So get called down to the office. Parents are involved. There's an issue that goes on. There's disciplinary action that may or may not occur because she's not aware. But mom and dad are really concerned. So mom and dad decide to come into the classroom and sit that next week. And they decide to sit in the classroom right behind me. Well, then there's the potential that my folks could turn around and say, hey, why is there a parent or someone else's parent sitting in the classroom trying to intimidate my child? And we try our best not to set people up for issues. So I recognize that it's a really fine line as to how do we provide these opportunities, because we want our parents to be involved, but we also want to make sure that we're being cognizant and keeping everybody safe and secure. So without getting into greater detail, the visitors policy is also one of the policies that came forward at the same time that CKA, the concealed carry policy, came forward, because there was a significant amount of push. And I think you saw it in some of the visitors' comments, that were public comment, about to shut down the schools. Don't let anybody come into the building between bell to bell, because easiest way to keep concealed carry out of the building, don't let anybody in the building, right? Then the only folks you have to worry about in the building are just the staff. Like, well, that's one way to do it, but there's also other ways to move forward with that. I do think that we have some wiggle room in our visitors policy along with the CKA that we may need to update and adjust it. But again, that's up to the policy committee and the board to accept any of those modifications or changes. There's a policy and a practice. The policy says that we have it. The practice is how we implement it. We can change practice at any time. Policy is what's driven by the board. What else we have? We've got, there was a question that came up around FERPA and rights. And this is a really unique one too. And I'm going to try to be as generic as possible as I can on this, because I think this may be an individual. So Family Education Rights Protection Act provides certain rights for parents regarding their children's educational records. When a student reaches the age of 18 years or attends an institution post-secondary education, at that time, the student becomes the eligible student, and all rights under FERPA transfer from the parent to the student. The district proactively works with 18-year-olds and students that are turning 18-year-old prior to that birthday to make sure that if they want their parents to continue to have rights to their educational acts, they have to sign off on permission. So when the child turns 18 and prior to the 18th birthday, the high school, Black Butte, Farson provides that information, provides that documentation, says, hey, if you want your parents to continue to have access to this, we need you to sign the paperwork. Otherwise, 18, they're an adult, and all of that documentation from the school only goes to them and not to anyone else. In many instances, that's taken care of ahead of time. And I had someone share an example with me that if their kid was staying at home, they're signing the papers, right? Because they turned 18 prior to graduation. In instances where it happens after the case, it's the child's responsibility or the family's responsibility to do this. In particular, there is a resolution to this. If the child turns 18 and it hasn't been done, and for whatever reason, there's still a need for access, there is a resolution to this, and this has actually been shared. The process is I'm not certain as to whether or not it's been followed through with. But the FERPA law and the language is very clear around how 18-year-olds are handled and how that's handled moving forward. So it is not it's not the district not wanting to be cooperative. We actually have laws that are in place that we're following. And we've also given instances as how to find that resolution as to how to move forward and still gain access. Let's see, 9th grade center. how are students being divided and transported? So we've already had summer conversations with transportation and with the high school as to how we're going to look at who's starting in the morning at the ninth grade center and who's starting at the high school, looking at addresses. And then who's got 0 hours at the high school, which would probably make sense for them to start at the high school and then just stay at the high school. And then who may be fall athletics, who may not be a 0 hour, but have athletics at the high school, who may want to finish at the high school. It has been a really unique conversation with transportation on trying to get this together. But through this process, we also found some other ways where we're going to have some hubs across the district where students who normally would have all just gone to the high school in one form or fashion now have the ability to get to 3 hubs, right? And they can hop a ride at either that hub to get to the high school and stay at the high school, or if they can hop on that hub and they can get themselves out to the ninth grade center. So we've done our best to kind of take care of how do we transport and divide those kids. It may not be the cleanest, but it's a starting off point, and we can get better as we go. But that has been a long conversation. There's been a great deal of work that's gone into how we can do this. So even if I think one of the examples was I'm hopping a ride with a junior or a senior and why would we drive across town? No issues, go to high school. There is a bus at the high school. The high school is a hub. Hop on the bus at the high school. It'll get you out to the satellite. There's no issues. So when folks are trying to plan or organize, there's a way for that to occur. If the ride after school is still at the high school and you're finishing at the ninth grade center, hop on the bus. It'll transfer you up to the high school. You can hop off at the high school. You can get in with hop your ride home, and you can go on from there. If you had you finish the day and you just so happen to have your academics in the afternoon, but you've got choir or band or jazz or something that was occurring after school, one of the sports, you get off the high school bus, you can hop up there and you can get home. We also have other transition points. I think one is junior high and the other is Walnut. So those are going to be 2 other places that if we pick students up at those spots, we're going to drop those kids back off at those spots as well, so that we can cut down not only on their transfer time trying to get home, but also you don't have to try to get out to the satellite past the other 3 elementary schools that are right there within the quarter mile and have to deal with all the traffic that is going to occur out on that edge of town. So we are using this as kind of a model for this first few years to say, hey, if this works really well, then maybe there's a way we can also kind of mitigate some of the transportation that's going on there when it's actually a 9-12 building total. And then you've got another 1,300, 1,400 kids that are going to be at that site. Have you truly considered the mental health impact? I think Ms. Schumacher has spoken to some of that. This system for students is put in place specifically to create smaller learning environments and to create greater connections and greater relationships between our students and our staff. When our kids aren't lost in the entirety of an 1,100 student population or 1,200 or 1,300 student population, you have an opportunity to build a greater connection. These kids are going to be set into teams where their group of their 100 students will have the same math, science, English, and social studies teacher. So it's not a mix across even the 8 or 11 teachers that are out there. It's just a handful of the teachers that are there so that they can continue to build these relationships. That's part of the big reason for doing this, is to create that smaller learning style. Do we want them to have access to the high school? Yeah, absolutely. Because there's some independence that needs to be sprouted and grown somewhere. So that independence comes when you go back to the high school, so that it's a slow roll into that release of control. That when they're there, they have their electives, and their electives are all over the downstairs of the building, right? So you get your opportunity to grow into it, but you get your opportunity to grow into that release of control through your 9th grade year, through a portion of the day. There's administration that's out there. There's counseling that's going to be out at the 9th grade building. We also have other opportunities to provide assistance and support. There was a question as to, well, what happens if I start at the 9th grade center and the entirety of my friendship group is at the high school? Great question. So let's open the door. Right now, we're not going to have groups of kids come in and say, hey, I want to be with my peer group. So we're just going to put clusters of peers together. But if there is a concern or there's an issue and you're struggling making a new connection with this group, that's why the counselor's there. That's why we're reaching out back to the junior high to make sure that we've got some of these connections right. We'll absolutely sit down with the student, those teachers and the family and say, hey, we've got some concerns that are arising because of how this dynamic is. Should we be doing something different? Is there a switch that we should make that maybe we're starting in the wrong spot because we're missing a larger base, we're missing a larger friendship group. So we'll absolutely look into that. It may be something that happens, it may not. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a conversation that occurs as to we need to have that conversation back to the 7th and 8th grade to get some more background on our 9th graders, but then also work with the 9th grade teachers and the 9th grade counselors as to, hey, did we get this right? Or should we make a change here in a mix? Should we move kids around so that there's a better place and a better location? I think that was a wonderful question. And I think that's something even before the summer gets out, we can kind of look at our transportation and where kids are started to maybe share it back and look it over to make sure that we've got kids being able to have some supports around them. One of the questions was how do parents support and plan? And this was around like the transportation in those locations. And I think I may have already covered that. And then we go on to a different question. There's a question about hiring practice that came in. What's the district's current protocol and timeline for offering and signing contracts? Positions are posted for at least 2 weeks prior to the interviews taking place. After interviews and references are checked, positions are offered pending board approval because they have to come here. Verification of employment letters are given to those in the summertime, and contracts are signed prior to the start of the school year. So if someone needs to let their other district know or let somebody know, or they're coming in because they're doing a rental or they're buying, we provide letters of employment verification so they're not just waiting for a contract. Well, this is a unique one. Why are board approved hires resigning within weeks? So we had a really unique situation occur. We had a couple that came to us, and in the process of coming to us, one of them applied for a position in another school district and it was accepted. So when they were coming here and they wanted to accept and accepted ours because it was based on board approval, the other one was already approved and the other district wouldn't let them out of their contract. So because ours hadn't gone through yet, they resigned their positions here because one of the spouses would not be allowed out of their contract in their other school district. So really unique anomaly. What steps are being taken to streamline interviews to ensure the process is fair and timely for both the internal staff and incoming educators? So this was a long one, but I'll try to abbreviate it. We started doing staffing early in February because we're looking at our finances and we're trying to get our budget. So when legislation is trying to do its budget at its level, we're trying to do our budget at our level to make sure that we have the right numbers and we have the right people that we should be hiring. The entire process is early. We sit down with all the buildings to determine what our needs are, and we speak to those from previous years in those hiring processes. And we want to try to get all of our positions out and posted by spring break, because that's normally across the nation where everybody is looking for folks. Those budget allocations matter the most as it's coming in. And if we have uncertainty in our budget, it pushes those position hires back further. This year was a really unique year in finance for us. So some of our positions for posting got pushed out, but we've done a pretty decent job of filling a significant number of our positions. What accountability is in place for poor planning leads to positions being left unfilled and file or filled or unfilled and lost again. Again, the solid systems are in place. There's the best we're working on for our hiring practices. If it's a systems issue, we address those and we modify those while we move forward. Many of our positions are difficult filled regardless when we post them. So our special education positions are really difficult. If the University of Wyoming graduated out how many? 6? It's really hard for the entirety of 48 school districts to fill any of those spots. Comparing open positions between 2 districts is really difficult to do. And the comparison is if it's next door to like Sweetwater 2, we're 5 times their size. So the number of positions that we may have open in comparison to what Sweetwater 2 has is really difficult to try to compare across the board. Man, I feel like I'm missing something, but that was 4 pages of responses. I think I got them. I think that's all of them. Did I miss one?
No, I just was going to add two things, and then maybe that'll give you a second to think if you forgot anything. So, Mrs. Fulmer, I appreciate you coming back. I want you to know that your story is important to me. And if you would like to meet up with me or the board or share something more, we're interested in hearing you. So for everybody's understanding, I'm not at all trying to be insensitive. There was actually a lawsuit against another school board for being discriminatory against how much time people were afforded and allowing some people opportunities that other people weren't allowed. So we have set the 3-minute time limit, and I do allow a few seconds of grace if you're trying to finish up a message. But by no means did I desire to cut you off. You're important, and so is your story, and I would be happy to hear you further, whether you want to submit that in writing or reach out to me and meet with me. But I will also say on that note, mental health is important to us. There's a reason that our board chose to review the Anxious Generation first. The book obviously came highly recommended, but it's also because mental health is probably the number one topic on the mind of the board, if I dare say so. And so, again, as I mentioned, the changes that we're making are going to have pros and cons and consequences that we didn't foresee maybe, or unintended consequences that we don't learn until the school year starts. But we are also trying to be proactive about addressing academic concerns and trying to do the best thing that we can for our district and our students as a whole. And so we've made this change. We are excited about it. However, we understand that things are going to come up, and we want to work with the community on those things as well. And we are prioritizing mental health. That's why we're talking about our cell phone policy and the enforcement thereof. I think we're pretty well near some resolution on that. But I want you all to know that it's important to us. The other thing I want to say is I truly believe that our board is very interested in working together as one team. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to agree. That doesn't mean that we're always going to provide the resolution that an individual is hoping to see. But I truly, as board chair, desire to hear you guys. I desire to meet with you guys. There's a reason that Dr. Libby and I have a monthly meeting that anybody's available to meet at, fourth Tuesday of every month, 8:30. Please reach out if you want to come talk, you want to share something, or just reach out any other time. But we do want to hear from you. So again, while that's not always going to be the end that everybody's hoping for, we're interested in working together for what's best for our students. So please join us in that effort. Did you think of
I
any
did.
others?
Thank
There
you for
go.
reminding me. There was public comment on cell phones, and you brought it up, and it was basically the continuation that cell phone practice and the use in the schools continues to the social media and the anxiety that's built around online bullying. And I believe there wasn't a question in there, but it was a statement based on I think the continued work that you're doing towards maybe a modification to that policy as we go forward. So again, 4 pages of response. I apologize if I missed any one specific question. Please reach back out to me. Let me know if I did and I missed it. I will absolutely reach back out and make sure that I get it accounted for. And like Chair Wright said, I think for the most part through this year, since this is the first full year, this is the last one to finish out one full calendar year for me. I think we've done a pretty decent job of keeping the door open. And if folks in the community want to come in and visit, I'm there. There's several folks here in the community right now that I've visited with on a regular basis, and I appreciate you coming in and visiting and taking the time to share your concerns and helping us continue to move forward in a positive fashion. I really do appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to item 8, which is our consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are matters about which the board has governing policies, implementation of which is delegated to the superintendent. They will be enacted in one motion in the order listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the Board of Trustees votes on the motion, unless members of the board request specific items be held and discussed separately and or removed from this section. So may I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda items as presented and or amended? It's been moved by Mr. Sorensen. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Franks. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Next is the approval of policy CKA, firearms policy. Is there a motion to approve policy CKA, the firearms policy? Any motions to approve the policy?
Just a point of clarification, by moving, that'll.
Well, still discussion. Yes, sir.
Wow, so moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Friggs. That brings us to discussion. Mr. Sorensen, go ahead.
Oh,
No?
I don't know.
Yeah, I got one.
Okay.
So, hey, folks, just so you're aware, like, this is state statute.
Yeah.
We need to move forward with this. We don't have, it's moving forward. Now, if there are questions or concerns that come up later, or we get greater clarification on any of those concerns, the definitions, the things that we've provided back either through WASA or through WSBA back that we're trying to get more clarification on, we absolutely can bring the board policy back for modification of the policy as it moves forward. I still believe that we may get some more information back from Cheyenne. I think there's a continuation of legal counsel that's working over there, trying to put some more meat on the bone for us, right? This is the definition of, in some instances, trying to fly the plane while you're building it. We're being held accountable for something that still has some terms in it that just aren't clarified to the level of everyone's comfort. And I appreciate folks taking the opportunity to really dig in to try to provide not only me, but the other 47 school districts in the state, the clarity that's been asked for. So please don't think that what comes before you has to be the end all be all. This policy can continue to be modified and adjusted. Oh, I do remember. One of the questions was around the training and the number of hours in which they're training, in that there's no space or place. Our training through board policy is going to be done through Rock Springs Police Department. So the hours in the 18 and the 16 that are going to be provided will be provided through Rock Springs Police Department. We're not going to expect folks to go out and find that. Now I remember the other one. The other piece is that there are other places and spaces that said, hey, these organizations may be better suited to provide the resources and supports that we're looking for our staff. And it may be above and beyond just Rock Springs Police Department being able to provide that. You're looking at educators. Most of us may not have first shooter training. I would imagine there's probably a significant number of folks in here that maybe not. And even some of our folks that are veterans, thank you for your service, may have limited, but may also not know those organizations that are out there that could also be useful and provide that. If, as we're moving forward, people bring those organizations or say, hey, here's something else that you may want to look at, you absolutely can turn around and have that conversations for additions. So I just want to make that clear that the rendition that you are voting on today that must go into place does not have to be the same as we moving forward. You can modify and adjust it as you see fit, as long as we stay within the parameters of what the state has provided us. So thank you.
So I would also like to add, just for everybody's information, our district legal counsel did individually meet with our SPD, and that's where some of the modifications to the training and so forth were created, as well as Dr. Libby and myself did. And this is just my personal interpretation of the conversation. Obviously, what somebody who went through this process chose to do is their choice. But the discussion was that if a staff member chooses to conceal carry while at school, I would think of them as acting in the defensive. In other words, they are there protecting themselves in their classroom full of students. There is no expectation that if somebody chooses to conceal carry as a staff member, that they're going on the offensive in an active situation and pursuing, whoever that might be. In fact, there's some concern to that because that creates chaos for the first responders. And so part of the idea behind this training, this scenario-based discussion, was to talk through those things. If this happened, what would this look like? Because I know some people have mentioned, like, there are other ways to be trained and other ways to get your concealed carry. That's true. But I know, being a personal person who has their concealed carry permit, I didn't have to go through any scenario-based training. And it's a whole different ballgame, in my opinion, when you're faced with students, first of all, young minor individuals, and a decision needs to be made. And so the whole goal behind this training was spend some time to think about it, put yourself in the shoes, and know ahead of time what you might be faced with so that you can be more prepared to make a better decision. It wasn't to put a burden on anybody. It was really to be a training opportunity to better prepare them for that. So that language that we have in there, that's kind of some of those I don't want to misquote, but the scenario-based training and the firearm or discharge-based training was merely there to be a tool, not a burden. Is there any other discussion on this?
Yeah, so on the training, have we talked about logistics with RSPD? Like, they can offer like a couple classes like right before school starts? Is that always already established, or is it just kind of talks?
That's a great question. We've had those conversations. We're still trying to hammer out the time and the location to get all of that done. And as soon as we do, we'll provide that information district-wide, for the sheer fact that it's open to anybody that's a staff member. So anybody who's a staff member that wants to take advantage of that, we'll set up those opportunities for them to work with local law enforcement on that.
Okay. Will there be a cost in those specific classes at that moment, or how does that?
Yep, I'm certain that there will.
Individual one?
Mhm. And then depending on whether or not the state extends their opportunity to be reimbursed for that into the new fiscal year, if they do, we'll absolutely take advantage of that so that we can get those costs taken care of.
So I have a question on the biometric lock boxes. I know we talked about this at one point, whether we are providing those, whether we're asking that the person that is concealing to provide those. And do we have any idea? Have we had any discussion as a district as to what we're doing with that?
Yep, great question. Thank you, sir. And I think that was the one that was in there and I think Mr. Gardner had the same question as to whether or not it needed to be biometric, or if it could just be biometric or a lockbox. And I believe, I think it's an either. And we did have the conversation that if that was the direction that we were going, that the district was going to provide those lockboxes, because it would go back towards the expense that could be reimbursed through the state. And then if we're doing that, then it's our responsibility to make sure that we put those lockboxes in appropriate places where they are concealed. Doesn't do any good to put a lockbox in a building and then mount it right in the back of the classroom, like next to the old pencil sharpener, right? So they would have to be in a space or a place where that is also concealed and away from the student. So that would be something that I believe that we would probably want to take the initiative on.
Are we also going to be overseeing, because like a biometric one is going to require continuous battery changes, things like that? Is that something that we're going to oversee?
If we purchased it, it would be our responsibility to maintain it.
And then my only other question was, and it's not part of this one, but I know it's been brought up, and it was discussed in our last board meeting, about it being concealed carry and any amount of showing, whether it be a hand grip, whether it be an imprint on clothing, things like that. I've had a fair amount of concern brought to me about that and how that would be addressed as a district, because it does leave, and this comes back to the aspect of, is it following policy? Is it retaliation? There's a wide range in there, because we don't have a set amount of, if we see it, this is what comes type of thing. There is a pretty good amount of gray area that leads us into a really tough position as a district.
Yep, absolutely. Great question. So concealed is concealed. That's what it means. So if the outline is showing, it's not concealed. If the grip is showing, that's not concealed. If you're wearing a jacket and your jacket is open and you have an underarm holster and someone sees it, that's not concealed. Concealed is concealed. Now, there is nothing in the state statute that says that if it shows in any form or fashion that you're immediately terminated. The state can't write that because there's different state guidelines around staff members that have proprietary rights to their positions. So if it's brought up or someone makes the statement or, hey, I noticed so-and-so, that absolutely turns into a human resources issue where the question needs to be investigated and reviewed. And then from that stance, you have a plethora of disciplinary issues that could arise from a review of the policy and what does this really mean? And hey, how did this occur and what can we do differently, to you came in and your shirt was caught on it and you walked through the school and your sidearm was showing as you walked down through the main hall of your building. Like, you got to pay greater attention, right? Or it fell out while you were in the bathroom and you left it there, right? Anomalies. Hopefully, knock on wood, it never happens. But there's a plethora of range between concealed and unconcealed. Concealed means no one should know. Like currently right now, no idea if someone's carrying in this room. If you are, good job, because you're not supposed to know. If it's out, we have to address it, but we have a range of disciplinary action that may be taken to address that as well.
Further discussion? Okay. Sorry, let me jump back to my agenda here. We have had a motion and a second, and no further discussion. So all those in favor of approving policy CKA firearm, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to item 10, it's an addendum. It's the recommended approval for the facilities department to purchase furniture for the Desert View Elementary School. May I please have a motion to approve the furniture for Desert View Elementary School in the amount of $261,226.73.
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Schumacher. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Wood. Any discussion on this item? Go ahead, Dr. Seppi.
So I just want people to know, and Dan, you're welcome to jump into this because, and yeah, catch me if I'm wrong, because I asked Dan this question earlier today. Anytime we're spending this amount of money, I want people to realize that we are asking questions and not just spending it unreasonably. The facilities committee, myself, Cole Wright, and Josh Sorensen have already toured this school. We talked about the amount being used for furnishings and things like that. Dan had told us that a certain percentage of the build out is what is allocated for the furniture and things of that nature. And this is between 4 and 6%, which this one falls within there. But I questioned it because I was unaware, but just so everybody knows, because I always hate to see us approve an amount of this amount and none of us seem to talk. I promise you it was discussed. Dan came up to me and gave me the answer earlier today. That way it did meet within our anticipated amount.
Thank you.
If I could add to that, Mr. Seppi tried to get Dan to keep all the old toilets.
There were toilets in every room.
They kept it. Every toilet in the building was taken off and just sat in the middle of the floor. I just asked what we were doing. Why that piece was kept in the building?
So we asked questions and had fun, right? Okay, thanks for that, Dr. Seppi. Is there a motion to approve as I previously stated? I'm sorry, there was, yes, and we had discussion. So all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Item number 11 is I need to have a motion to approve the bid for Sweetwater County School District Number 1 property and casualty insurance coverage.
So moved.
Been moved by Mr. Sorensen, second. Second by Dr. Franks. Any discussion on this item?
It says that we're having higher limits. Are we changing any of our deductibles or anything like that as far as parameters go?
No, this is just property and casualty insurance. So no, we have some higher limits in coverage and it actually, we ended up with a lower premium.
Okay. Last year we went from 25,000 to 50. Was why it seems we're staying in the same spot.
I believe so, sir.
Any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. And for everybody's pleasure and enjoyment, there is no executive session tonight. So we will skip item 12. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's been moved by Dr. Franks enthusiastically. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Wood. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Meeting's adjourned at 7:31.